This is Dal Houston, and I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel. My videos address how to change your circumstances in life, whether they be financial, personal, social, or just life in general. I know there are hundreds, if not thousands, of similar sites. With that said, for better or worse, I just see the world differently than others, and I can tell you without any hesitancy that you will find thoughts, strategies, and ideas here you won't find anywhere else. It is my sincere hope you will find the content interesting and enjoyable. Thank you. Hey guys, Dal here. Made a very interesting observation over the weekend. Really interesting observation. Let me get past this cough. And I was debating. I had to explain it this morning as I was getting ready. I'm going to start it with this story that a speech professor told to his class back when I was in college, back in the dark ages, okay? The speech professor was from Massachusetts or somewhere back east, New Hampshire, I'm not quite sure where. And he said, it's amazing how beliefs vary. And the facts will be the same, but the meaning that someone puts on those facts can change, and how someone else's influence can influence how you're viewing it. The story was this, and clearly that today's story is not about pancakes and syrup and sausage, but he said when he was a young man, his family, his mother would fix pancakes. They'd put them on a plate, lots of syrup, and then the sausage at the side of it with the syrup getting on the sausage. And he said he never thought anything about it. That's the way they liked him. That's the way they ate him. But that when he was in college, he had a girlfriend, and they would go study together and late at night, and that he would order that, and she would say, "Ew, that's gross. I don't know how you do that." And he said over time, all of a sudden, he found his beliefs changing, that he said, "Oh, gross." And when he'd go home to visit his parents and they would do it, it's like, "Ugh, gross, you're doing this." And he said, now understand, he said, the taste of my mother's pancakes and syrup and sausage didn't change. It's only his perception of it that changed, and what made that perception change was someone saying, "Ooh, that's gross." Had that person not been there, most likely he had still been eating it. So, with that in mind, setting the story about others' influences. Over the weekend, today's Monday by the way, over the weekend, my wife and I and our kids went to the first getting back to after summer break and COVID break for our kids' sporting events. Over the last 6 months, there hasn't been school, there's been summer, there hasn't been sports that normally would have absorbed our summer and everything else. And we've been pretty rigid about following the guidelines. We've went a few places, long weekends here and there, but we've been pretty tied to home, and there's been obviously no sporting events. So over the weekend we went out of town. It just happened that my son had a football scrimmage and my daughter had a middle school softball tournament. Okay, so we rode together. I went to my son's scrimmage, and my wife went to my daughter's softball tournament. And here's the interesting thing, because there hadn't been anything going on that there normally would have been, I saw people that I hadn't seen in 6 months, who hadn't seen me, whose influence I hadn't had, and hadn't had my influence on them either. And I sat there during that scrimmage, observing and listening to stuff. I realized something. How much people influence us. because I know for the past 6 months I've been doing my thing, fairly free of any outside influences, except what I from my own making. A few people that come by my office, what few interactions we had with somebody socially, and they were very limited. Same with the people I was observing. But it's amazing. What I found was, despite the fact I thought I had been on hold with my life, and that it was just going to kind of pick back up where it was, I found that because there had been no filter in my life saying this is important, this is not what's important, this is right, this is wrong, is only what I perceived, which is a good thing, don't get me wrong. I was amazed. I was listening to conversations about politics, about sports, about school, about the virus, this, that, all kinds of stuff. And I was amazed. You know, you go, golly, I realize that despite me thinking I was on hold, and despite me thinking others were on hold, the world has marched on. And it's amazing. And when you realize, not only is it amazing that regardless, because I knew I was changing. I'd been posting quite a few videos, but I hadn't been traveling. I hadn't been attending any events. Certainly not doing much socially. That I thought, okay, I'm kind of on hold with my life, and it wasn't. I had realized that the trajectory that I was on when all this stopped back in late February, early March, had continued on. That the trajectory other people had been on had marched on, and pretty much whatever trajectory you was on was where you were going to go. Because, again, it wasn't like the normal, prior to that, you know, heck, we'd had a sporting event once a week, and so you'd see people, and you'd hear inputs of, oh, well, this is how I feel about politics, about the economy, about sports, about this, about that, current events. So it wasn't such a huge deal, and you had some input coming in as to how other people were seeing the world. And I was like, holy crap, you know, it's amazing what other people's influence and opinion does to you. Think if you were on a desert island, just you and you alone, and you had only you and your perception of events happening to say, oh, this is a good event, this is a bad event, I like this, I like that, I don't like this, and I don't like that. Because we think those are all set in stone. Oh, I like this, I like that. But just like my professors, he liked his mother's pancakes and sausage, that was good. All of a sudden it became bad because of somebody else's influence. The pancakes didn't change, the sausage didn't change. And the events that I had been living through were the same events for pretty much, and when you look at a macro level, that everyone else was. And yet the view that I had seen was this, the view that others saw was this, as I listened to their statements and their discussions. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. That and this is, in my opinion, once in a lifetime deal, because it's one thing to say, you know, maybe I took off a month, maybe I took off a couple months, maybe I had an illness and was out of the workplace for a year. But here you've got everybody out of the workplace, so to speak, and everything slowed up. So you get to see not only how you are continuing down that path without inputs and feedback from others, but you're seeing how others do it as well. Now, what is the uptake of this? This may not change your life, but it is important to know. Well, the first thing, it can change your life, and that really, because people think, no, this is right and this is wrong because this is how I feel, this is what my friends feel. But when you realize, you know, hey, perceptions can change depending on who you're listening to, maybe you want to listen to someone new. Or maybe you want to quit listening to somebody old. I don't know. Or maybe you want to listen to somebody old. I don't know. Does that make sense? Second thing is, I don't think anything stays the same. I really, really, really thought I was on hold. I really did. And I was pushing myself, okay, change my way I think about this, change my way I think about that. But I was amazed how much, when I was confronted with that reality of seeing how of others that I maybe used to would have agreed with or would have agreed with me, and I saw how different we were based on this gap of 6 months or so. I realized, holy crap, nothing stays the same. We think we're staying the same. We think nothing's changing, but in fact it is. So that's important. Takeaway real quick for that is, and I'm running out of time, is, you know, if everyone you're headed down is changing at the same rate and in the same direction, that's one thing. Because it is hard to get a grasp. It feels as there's not a change, but in fact there is. But wow, when you compare what I'm doing with what someone else is doing and realize all that difference, it is amazing. So anyway, just remember, nothing, despite thinking it stays the same, nothing stays the same. Everything's always moving, and how much other people can influence you. Guys, I hope you enjoy it. This is really important stuff, but it does take some thought and some creativity to apply it to your life. Talk to you later. Enjoy.